going to be hearing from Andrea Reyes Elizondo. She is a researcher at the Center for Science and Technology Studies at Leiden University. Her work has focused on research integrity, citizen science, and open science. At CWTS, she coordinates the focal area Evaluation and Culture, which is concerned with the development of responsible research assessment practices and on fostering healthy research cultures. She is also a self-funded PhD candidate, congratulations, on book and reading history at the Leiden University Center for the Arts in Society. Her doctoral research focuses on the reconstruction of reading possibilities in New Spain or colonial Mexico during the 18th century. So welcome, Andrea, and we looking forward to your presentation today.
Thank you, Jamie. So hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. So today I will be talking about AI again, which I'm sure you have been hearing a lot about it. But this one might be a little bit of a different look. So we've been hearing a lot about AI every day. We hear about AI, and very often is said that this is a tool. So I thought, okay, let's look at it as a tool and then link that to some concerns that I think everybody is having. And I think also I heard some of them in the previous presentation. Yeah, so I will talk a little bit about tools and then also AI, what is AI, what does it do? Link that to education and research, for example, EdTech, but also the values and principles of education and research, and how I think we can reclaim our agency for a better future. A little bit about myself. Jamie already introduced me, but just maybe you think, okay, why is she talking about AI? or what does she do? So yes, I'm a researcher at the Center for Science and Technology Studies, and we look into research on research. So we do research on research. And the focal area where I work is we look about a healthy research culture, open science practices, and scholarly communication as well. And I've been working on research integrity, citizen science, and open science. On my PhD, which is self-funded, also at Leiden University, I'm a book historian, that's my background. And I'm actually looking into reading history. So that's what I'm focusing on. And you might say, well, what are you doing with AI? And that's a very good question. So my academic background is communication sciences, book and digital media studies, but also from my interest on research integrity and open science. I've been talking to a lot of colleagues about AI. So AI is not new, also it's not something recent from, let's say, 10 years ago. But we've seen it more and more at our universities. And I've been discussing with colleagues from different backgrounds at my university, but also in the Netherlands and in other countries. And we got together in the summer. We launched this open letter, which says, Stop the Uncritical Adoption of AI Technologies in Academia. And in this, what we were just saying to our employers, we're saying, okay, this is, there are many issues with AI, and we just feel that this is just being taken, our expertise, the collective expertise that we have at universities, this is not being considered on how this is already being implemented at university. The letter had around 1,500 signatures. This was in the summer last year. And then in September, we put a position paper which is more extended on what we had said on the open letter. And these are all my co-authors. So I also want to say, if I misrepresent something, I hope not, but this is the work of also all my authors. And this is also part of collective conversations that we have been having. So much of what I will talk today it's also the work of all these authors. So yes, so very often AI is being told as, okay, it's just a tool, right? Like any other tools that we have. So I thought, okay, let's look about a tool, right? And then tools allow us to access our environment in a different way by enhancing our capabilities. And it's not just something that humans use, other animals also use it. And here we see there's a picture of, it's a very famous picture, I think, or many people know about this. It's a New Caledonian crow, and it's using a little like twig to take, to make insects come out of a trunk. So here we see how other species also use tools, enhancing their capabilities. So now I was thinking, okay, so people say AI is a tool. So I thought, okay, let's look into tools. And then the next one will be a question. Should I give it to you, Jamie, for the Mentimeter? Right. So if you could tell me what is your favorite tool, and it doesn't matter for what, but just I'm just really curious about what is your favorite tool.
So to go to the Mentimeter to put in your comments, you can aim your phone at this QR code that's on the screen, or Marie is going to paste the menti.com website in the chat, as well as the code, which is 13187732. And don't worry, I'm going to move off this page, but we're going to actually move to the question here. And you'll still see that the Menti code on the right, etc. So we see people already participating and putting in their chats, and I'll leave that to you, Andrea, to talk about.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm seeing toothbrush, GPS, GPT, Alexa Plus, Muji Pen. Oh, GPS is very,
It is a very good tool and invented by a
yeah,
woman. Ooh,
yes. Microwave, yes. I'm a fan of
charcoal.
microwaves.
Ooh.
Pocket knife, hammer, charcoal. I would be curious to hear from people if charcoal means, oh, vacuum cleaner is also a good one. Is charcoal, do you mean charcoal as in charcoal, or is it
Charcoal
a
would
name?
be, for us, it's like a little small black brick that we can purchase and we use it for barbecuing.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I was thinking,
okay.
because there are so many products now, also so many apps that have other names. So I
Oh,
thought maybe it's an app that I don't
ooh,
know.
it could be a tool like an app. I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, so that would be curious. But many people like charcoal. I think
Yes.
it's because in the US you have more of a culture of barbecuing. Well, maybe
I
you
believe
have
that's
better
true.
weather for that than we have in the Netherlands.
I don't know. The Netherlands has some pretty spectacular weather, in my opinion, but sticky notes,
Sticky notes, phone, scanners. Great. Fork is a good one.
work is a good one. Snowblower.
Scissors.
Definitely, we've appreciated that over the last few weeks. We've gotten hammered with some snow here.
I can imagine.
Sewing machine. I do love a good sewing machine, I have to say.
Bicycle, of course. I can say I really like my bicycle as well.
And now I'm singing that song. I don't know if I want to ride my bicycle.
Oh yeah.
This is great. Thank you
Well,
for all of the responses here.
great. Thank you. Okay, so will this be saved?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. Um, right. So, right. So I will tell you about my favorite tool. My favorite tool is a hand blender. I'm Mexican and I like to make salsas. And of course, you can make salsas in in many ways. You can even crush the tomatoes with a stone if you want. But many people would use the blender, or that was what was used also a lot. That was electrical. But from the blender, you have to wash the whole receptacle. You have to move things. And the hand blender is a little bit more easy to do. You don't have to wash so much. And it's great, except when you're trying to do pico de gallo, which is another type of sauce, which is chopped tomatoes and chopped other ingredients. So you could have an additament for the hand blender where you can chop certain ingredients. But if you try to chop the tomatoes, it's just going to puree them, right? So it's a great tool for salsas, but not for all the salsas. So this just shows us how a tool can be great, but it's almost impossible to have a tool that you would say it's good for everything, right? And even when it's for something that might seem to be fitting, it's not always fitting. So we always pay attention of what do we use a tool for, right? And somebody was mentioning their microwave and washing machine. And of course, they're for household appliances, but you're not going to mix them, because if you try to warm up your lasagna in the washing machine, it's probably not going to work. So now we're going to go into another question that I'm going to give to Jamie. So this is about AI. So what do you think when somebody says AI, and it can be just anything? Low effort, stolen art. Okay, great. Theft, lazy, productivity. It's very interesting. Offload, robots, helpful. Oh, no, not again. Somebody put that, yes. Yeah, I think there's no day that goes without something on AI. Yes. Helpful, assistance. Nope. Risky, unstoppable, assistance. I wrote the future. Okay, it's very interesting also that the very big one, so a very big one for a moment was helpful, and then it became lazy. So lazy robot helpful assistance. Thank you very much. I'll keep that now. So slides, yes. Right, so AI. AI, as some of the comments were also saying, there is a lot of hype around AI, right? And we're working on education and research, so we have been hearing how Gen AI is the silver bullet. It's a techno utopia. It will bring a new world order. And this is from this is how a colleague put it in this article. That's links there. The links will be put also in the chat later. And then I have here 3 screenshots of news items around AI. So the first one is from almost 2 years ago, where ChatGPT, it says ChatGPT could be smarter than your professor in the next 2 years. And it said that PhD level intelligence is coming from ChatGPT. And I remember when this came up, it was a lot of people were having fun because we were wondering what is a PhD level intelligence. The second item is about how an AI chatbot helps students with their online learning and teaching staff with their supervision. So this is perfect, right? Like on the one hand, it will help the students, and also it will help the teaching staff. So everybody wins. And the last one says AI helps reduce learning gaps in foundational skills. And it also, this one has an image of, there are a few students on the background, a little bit blurred, and there's a tutor or a teacher helping one of the students. And in the front, there's a kid with a lot of papers that actually looks like corporate reports, not so much homework. The image was made by ChatGPT, it does say that. And then a teacher is helping him, pointing something in a paper, but she also has a tablet, right? So there's this whole imagery of technology. It's modern, it's progress, we're doing great. So this is also something what we're constantly bombarded, right? Like this is what AI is. And somebody put it there also in the club, AI is the future. So what is AI? And AI can refer to a lot of things. It's used for generative models, classifiers to analyze data, machine learning, and I'm putting learning there in quotes because it's not a human, so it doesn't learn. Spell check software, chatbots, LLMs. So it's being used for everything. It's a terminological jumble. And of course, you have open signifiers. So if I say tree, everybody will think of a different tree. But in this case, this blurring of terminology is on purpose because it does make it when if somebody mentions, well, this is really concerning, for example, how some people are having mental health breakdowns with some AI technologies, and then people will say, well, that's the bad AI, right? But then what's the good AI? It's very difficult because everything is AI. So this is something that we put in our paper. In the present, AI has no fixed meaning. It can be anything from a field of study to a piece of software. Also in our paper, I'm not going to go into this, but also if you want to check it, we try to disentangle this terminological disarray. And then so we had a table, okay, what is usually meant with artificial intelligence, with artificial neural networks, a chatbot, a large language model, a generative model, and for example, what would be ChatGPT? And then there was a colleague made this Venn diagram in like, okay, where would you put these things depending on what they are? And of course, we must say that, for example, ChatGPT is not open. So this is also a sort of educated guess because it's the process is not completely open. So is AI new? Artificial intelligence, it's a very old term. So we think it's something new, and in the future is now. We have to seize the moment or we will be left behind. But artificial intelligence is a really old term. It's maybe almost 70 years, or yeah, maybe almost 80 years old. And this was from John McCarthy. He used the term to get funding for a workshop for 2 months at Stanford, and sorry, at Dartmouth. And what he said is, what he was proposing is that with 10 people in these 2 months, they would be able to describe every aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence, so that the machine can simulate it. So, and then they could find out how to make machines use language, form abstractions and concepts, solve kinds of problems now reserved for humans, and improve themselves, right? So this is also how it's being framed. And this has been the promise since 55. And since then, there have been what people call the summer and the winters of AIs. And it comes a promise like now it's the moment, and then it goes down. And so it's not really a new term. And this has been coming for a long time. The term artificial intelligence, it also leans heavily on intelligence, right? It's going to learn, it's going to improve itself. But then what does it mean, intelligence? The problem with intelligence is that it has been used in the past by groups of humans to say, well, these humans are intelligent, therefore they deserve life and they have rights. And other people are an obstacle for the human race. So it has racist, sexist, classist, and ableist undertones, and it has been used for race pseudoscience, that it has been used to justify eugenics and genocide. So the picture that is shown here is from the conference, I think it was the second conference of eugenics, and it shows a tree, and at the top it says eugenics, and at the bottom, so the roots, or what is feeding the tree, is all the sciences, right? Genetics, psychology, anthropology, law, genealogy, sociology, ethnography, etc. And then so the idea was like it will help humankind or mankind to self-direct for human evolution, right? That was the idea. But so it's also important to question, when we say intelligence, what are we referring to, or how are we measuring this? And on top of being racist, sexist, classist, and ableist, it's also specious, because we think as humans, oh, we are the intelligent, and it just furthers human exceptionalism, which makes really bad science, and it doesn't allow us to connect with our environment in a more fruitful way. So I thought, okay, we've seen AI, how it's presented. There's a lot of narrative around it, but then what does it do? And on this time, I would like to talk about how it is made. So we have AI is trained in a lot of data. So it is connected to data theft. And somebody had already mentioned that in the cloud. So there is data colonialism, and there has been also lots written about this. So behavioral data and biometric databases from the global majority, from the global south, are being used to feed these models, right? Because they don't work on just a little bit of data. You need a lot of data. And then, so there's some data that is being taken from, it can be from how people use, for example, social media or their phones. But then you also have data extractivism. So we have been hearing a lot about how they've been scraping books from pirate sites. And then they're using these to feed the models, right? So this is copyright infringement. So when students, teachers, and researchers are using large language models or chatbots, you're openly appropriating work that is not yours. And I know that for many people, this sounds very strong, like I'm not doing that, or well, that's done. But this is really what is happening, right? It's not something, it's not from the LLM, it's not from the chatbot. This information was made by humans, so it comes from humans. And this is, of course, linked also to exploitation. So we have ghost workers that they're not on the forefront. So what we're seeing is the interface of the LM or a chatbot or another AI technology. But there's a lot of work going behind it. So it's not just the data from humans or that humans have either drawn or made a video or wrote something, but this data has to be labeled. It doesn't happen magically. And the people that are doing that, they are not paid properly. They're not recognized. So it's human work, but it's being presented as if it's not human work. And this is linked to the anthropomorphization. This is a very difficult word. I'm really happy I could say it well. So people are not recognized for their work because everything from what it's made, also how it's programmed, this is made by humans, right? But then we always say like, oh, look what that LLM did. It was great. And you're like, yeah, where did it get the information? There was this case I think it was a story in The Guardian that somebody had tried with one of these LLMs to write a short story, and they were like, oh, it's great. And it was I don't know if it was Nabokov or somebody else. So it was text from somebody else. So of course it looked great, right? But also what this happens is what we're seeing is that computers are being humanized while dehumanizing humans because we are not recognizing the work that humans are doing. And then we're seeing, oh, but the LLM, the machine is behaving like a human. And this is also really concerning because this is also how to whom we ascribe rights and the humanity, right? So who are we seeing as equals, as people that we can work with? So we are not working with the ghost workers, but we are working with this interface. Another issue, and I'm sure it's nothing new for most of you, but I thought it would be good to mention it. There is a lot of issues with environment. So there are environmental and social harms from data centers. Water is scarce in many regions. For example, in the Netherlands, we have had drought, although it's almost impossible to imagine because it seems that it rains a lot here. But last year, for example, we had a really bad drought. Thankfully, it rained in the summer. But I mean, there are many other countries that are really struggling with water. In the big cities, for example, in Latin America, in the periphery, people don't have running water all the time. They just have it limited. So what does it mean that we are using water for all these data centers, right? There is also the question of land. Where are these data centers going to be placed? They also need a lot of electricity and rare minerals. And what we are seeing, for example, with electricity, how the electricity bills in some places are going up. And this is because there is a strain on the electricity grid. This is also affecting renewable energy. So there have been some windmill parks that are being built here in the Netherlands, and people thought this is great. It's going to give electricity to several cities. And it turns out that it was going to a data center, right? So it's not going for the people. And in some countries where air conditioning is really necessary because the temperatures are really high, what does it mean, for example, when then people do not have access to electricity for survival, for their well-being and health? And this is being used for data centers. And this is all creating what is known in literature as sacrifice zones. So sacrifice zones are for example, when polluting industry is placed in certain areas which are close usually to marginalized or poor neighborhoods or communities, and it is affecting their well-being and health. So this expansion on these data centers, it's not free, right? It does have a cost. And finally, I would also like to talk about the skills. So there are cognitive harms related with Gen AI use. So we are seeing that functional illiteracy is increasing. And also when I was teaching, I haven't been teaching for a year and a half, but when I was teaching, I was seeing somehow some of my students in bachelor level were struggling with certain concepts, or then maybe not reading so much. But then what we could be thinking is, why is that, right? And then so I think what we should focus is, why are we seeing that people have less skills, reading and writing skills? But instead of doing that, what we're thinking is, well, we have this band-aid that will solve the issue, right? And this is going to be great because then students, it will help them read or write. But we must accept reading and writing cannot be optimized. There are skills that need to be trained. And this is not something that once you know how to read, for example, when you're 12, 14, and you say, okay, I can decode certain words, that this is enough, right? It's something that you're practicing and it just gets better. Of course, it takes time and it's not easy work, but that's what it takes. In the Netherlands, we have between 1.5 to 2.1 million people with functional illiteracy. So in principle, they can read, but they cannot understand complex text. And this is something really straining for their lives. And maybe some people would say, well, you can just now use ChatGPT or another tool for reading or writing. But this doesn't really take something from actually doing by themselves. So when there are literacy campaigns to help people to improve their reading and writing skills, it really changes their life, right? Like now they can access directly different texts, whatever text they want. What we also see is that there is cognitive offloading and that this takes the skilling. And this is not only for students, but it's also for us. And I understand that sometimes people want to use this because we say, okay, I'm short of time. But if I've seen people, I think colleagues using it for writing emails. And if you can no longer write an email, then we need to take a moment and stop and say like, okay, then maybe we need to organize time differently, right? So this is it. There are things that we will lose when we're doing cognitive offloading. And another thing to remember is that large language models, they only create plausible sounding text. So they cannot distinguish between incorrect statements and facts. And very often people are saying, well, this is hallucination or it was something wrong, but this is how it works, right? They just look into a big corpus of data and they say, okay, it's most likely that this is because of how they've been trained, right? Like this most likely this text goes about this, and then it guesses which word is going to go next to the other one, but it doesn't understand. It has no relations to truth. So what is happening when we're using these so-called tools for knowledge production or for knowledge dissemination? So now I would like to move into tools in academia, and I'm going to give again the screen to Jamie. So, oh, sorry. Yes. So, what is your favorite tool on research or education? Virtual whiteboard, Google, Campus Library, Google Scholar, Gemini. I don't know if there are librarians here, but I think they will be very happy to hear that the Campus Library is their favorite research tool for somebody. Sticky notes, Copilot, Mural, my local library, Consensus. I'm sorry, I have to ask, is this an app?
I'll check in the chat for you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Whoever put consensus in there, if you want to describe that, or I can find it. Yeah. Oh, so Alejandra said it was an app.
Okay. Yeah. Now you never know. It can be an app, a drink. computer. Great. Okay, so I'll go back to the presentation. Thank you, Jamie. Right, so I'll tell you about my favorite research tool. So my favorite research tool is Zotero. And Zotero is a free and open source reference manager. And it was developed by a grant by the Andrew Mellon Foundation, Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, and the Institute for Museum and Library Services, as well as user donation. And it's maintained through subscriptions, institutional and user subscriptions. And what is great is because it's open source, and it's also free. So people that cannot pay, they can still use it. And those that we can pay, then we can support and help others to have this reference management tool. And it allows you to save, it has connectors, so you can save it from your browser, so you can save the document, but you can also add documents. And if you have a very specific type of document that is not included in the library, you can make your own. There are also several plugins, and the community is helping each other. So I think for me, this is one of a really good example of what can be a nice collective open community, open source tool for research and education. I want to move now a little bit on EdTech. So what happens with EdTech is, and this is also very linked of how AI is being also introduced at universities, is that very often we think that we fall into what Meredith Broussard in her book Artificial Intelligence calls techno-chauvinism. And this is the idea that technology is always the solution, right? So everything will be fixed with technology. And I don't know if you remember the one laptop per child, which in principle sounds really good, but you need to look also at the context, right? So the children that got the laptop, was there an infrastructure where there was, for example, an internet connection, or was there enough electricity? In many cases, it was not the case. But of course, the program here was fun. So this was like many people were chipping on it, where it was funded. So somebody sold a lot of laptops. But was this really the best use of money for many schools? That is probably not the case. And here I have a screenshot this is from the Queen University, Queen Mary University London. They have made an AI app for grading, for giving feedback. And then, so there's a lot of report on this. I have the URL there. And then when it says it, so when they're talking about it, it was like, well, the AI feedback was, it was clear and structured, but it lacked pedagogical sensitivity. So what do? They put a human nanny for the AI tool, right? So a babysitter for the tool. And now what they call this, they embedded the educator review stage. So actually what can do is it's really increasing your workload, although they say that it's optimizing and it's less. But here what we're seeing is that they're putting it like, oh, the AI tool is doing this, but actually they're putting the human babysitter, which is not recognized so much, right? But then we say like, oh, well, this is a collaboration. And then the question would be, is this really the best way in which we will be spending our budgets and our time? Because this is another thing. Although it might seem that it's very easy because some of these tools are free or easily available, it's not free, right? So you will need to be developing them, updating them. Where is the data stored? How is it running? So all these are costs, and it can become an infrastructure that locks us in. So if we think of infrastructures, we have a good example with cars. So cars are great for moving from one place to another. But of course, when we see the ads for cars, you can just drive very easily. But most of the times we're sitting in traffic because there are just many cars. And it's actually it's not the best way to move people. So if you're moving 4 people in a car, that's great. But if you're moving 1 person per car, and there's so many cars like that, it's not the best way to transport. What happened was that many cities were built around the idea that everybody has a car, or most people will have a car. So the infrastructure around cities was made thinking on cars. And now what we see is that we're now thinking, okay, for well-being and for health, it's better, and also to have more green spaces, it's better to have cities where everything's sort of close, where you can cycle or walk. But the infrastructure we have now does not really allow for that. And of course, we can change that infrastructure, but it will take a lot of investment and effort to change that infrastructure, right? So it's good to think about what kind of infrastructures are we putting ourselves into before we go completely into this is what we will have to be using. And oh, sorry, I should have described these images. So the first image shows it's a highway. You see 3 lanes and it's just full of cars, traffic. And on the other side, on the left side, you see the cars coming, and there's also a lot of traffic. And on the right, there is an image from, it's a very famous image and it has been reproduced several times. This is from the Canberra Cycling Promotion Fund. So it shows an amount of people next to a bus, how many people you can transport with a bus. And then the same people, how many cars would you need to transport that people with the cars? And then the same amount of people with bicycles. And it also shows like how much space is taken in cities, for example, by cars, and also everything that comes with it, also with roads and pollution. So I think this is good to think about that it's not just a tool, but it's a tool that comes with a whole infrastructure, and that it's economical and it's social. So just to think also how we are introducing these so-called tools into our educational and research environments. So now I would like to look into values and principles. So I would like to hear from you. Which values guide your work in education and research? So I will give again the screen to Jamie. So what is for you important in education and research, or research? Growth. Oh, I think this is a difficult question.
And give them a moment. They're probably
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
thinking.
it is. It's not like a tool.
It's a thinker question. Very,
Yeah,
especially to kind of titrate it down to a single word or a phrase.
yeah. Okay, so we're seeing more. So we see growth, blooms, accountability, authenticity, transparency, integrity, learning, curiosity, questions, equity. Yeah, I really like this curiosity, this growth.
Yeah, I love this, the responses here.
Yeah, joy, exactly, yes.
Joy.
Inclusion, empathy, iteration. I think there's a new one. Past experiences, mentorship. Great. Okay, I'll now share my screen. Thank you very much for sharing this with me. Um, so what we will also try to say in our paper is that we think education, of course, students want a qualification, and also that's why people usually study, but education is not just a qualification, right? We are, and I think also I saw it from the words that you were sharing, we're preparing students to become capable, empathic, and active members of society. So we're not training them to be consumers. That also we all already learn and every day, so nobody needs training on that. So I think these are the things that when we were discussing about the paper, this is something that we thought like this is what makes us give what we find joyful from teaching, right? And knowledge, we think knowledge should be guided by exploration and understanding, so grounded in facts rather than fabrication. So here we see a tension when many of these AI tools that you have to babysit them or look around. So it does it really help to explore and understand? I think we think that education should be aligned with the values that we claim to embrace, right? Some of you mentioned, for example, equity, but there are also issues about language and social justice, multiculturalism, critical reflection, citizenship, sustainability. So these are values that with all my colleagues, I think I hear them, and I would say most of us embrace these values. So we should align also education with that. And then if we look at that, then we should also demand that technology in the classroom is only used when there are proven pedagogical benefits, right? So students are not guinea pigs, and big tech has an interest on selling certain product, which I understand it because that's their goal. But when we are talking about the students and how to help them become these capable, empathic, and active members of society, what kind of technology is serving this? I would like to now move to what one of my colleagues calls the human knowledge ecosystem, right? So humans have created a lot of knowledge through millennia in different cultures, in different languages, and that is it's improved by others and it's taken, and that's how science works in education, and we pass it around. The problem with Gen AI is that it's taking this knowledge, right? It's extractive and it's opaque, but it does not rely on reciprocity, which is a cornerstone of academia, or should be a cornerstone of academia. So what we see is that AI usage, we're seeing that data is being fabricated. There's plagiarism, falsification of results, distortion of the scientific record. So when sometimes a paper is summarized, it's saying something completely different. And I hope I show that it's linked to harm to the environment and to other people. So this is also something that institutions are noticing, of course, and we are between each other, we are raising this with our colleagues. We have concerns about it. And then we see that our institutions are rushing to create ethical AI codes, right? We need to do an ethical AI code. However, we already have codes of conduct. So what I will show you is an example from the Netherlands. So we have the Netherlands Code of Conduct for Research Integrity. So when you start working at a higher education institution, you should read this code and say, yes, I will follow it. And it's centered in 5 values, which are honesty, scrupulousness, transparency, independence, and responsibility. So we already have these values. That's what we are centered on. So you don't need to make something new. You just say, okay, so if we're using AI, how does it relate to our code of conduct that we already have? And for example, for honesty, we'll say, well, we don't use it without disclosing it, and we don't make unfounded claims about it. For scrupulousness, we only use them when the functions are well specified and validated for what it says it does. Transparency, so it should be open source, reproducible, and use fair data. Independence will refer to, when we are working, we should be unbiased by the AI companies' agendas, right? And if there are conflicts of interest, these should be disclosed. It's also linked to honesty and transparency. And responsibility, when we use a tool, whatever it is, we should use it. It should be responsible, right? So if the use of a tool is irresponsible, it violates legal guidelines, or is harmful to people, animals, or environment, we should really be questioning, why are we using it? And is it okay that we use it? So now I would like to close with how I think we can go to a better future and present. So it's not all doom and gloom. So the first thing is to reclaim our agency and expertise. So this means we feel like maybe this is being pushed around us, and we're hearing this is the future, you have to jump in or you'll be left behind. But also, as the speaker before says, like, we don't know how the job market is going to look in 20 years. We just don't know. I mean, I don't know who was in my space here, but my space is gone. So things change. So we also should be taking time of saying like, okay, this is my class or this is my work, right? And then also say like, how do we want to be working on it? But also recognize our expertise and also our collective expertise. So I'm not an AI researcher like some of my co-authors, but I'm a reading historian. So when people make claims about reading, because this is what I've been studying, or about research integrity, I'm like, hey, I do know about that, right? Um, I think it's also important that we reject neocolonial and extractivist practices. We want to make, I saw it also on the words and on the values that you were sharing, right? We want a world where can have fruitful development and relationships with people and with our environment. And we want to be empathic. We really, I think for all of us, we want to improve the world. So we cannot be building education on top and science on the backs of exploited ghost workers and human in the loop, data colonialism, and the resource capture. So we should also be able to say, no, we don't want this, because this is not a natural phenomenon, right? This is something that is being developed. There are social and political discussions around it. Um, Another thing that we can do is refuse critical watching. So when there will be also, as happened also in my universities, but also in discussions I've been having on a national level in the Netherlands is, well, we just mentioned there are issues on the environment, but what can you do, right? And then reflecting on harms. So mentioning the harm is not harm reduction. We should be reducing harm. Oh, sorry for the description of the picture of the previous one. I didn't say it, but it was a lot of resources that takes to make AI. And on this one, there is a woman that is sort of uh, she has some threads as if she is sort of knitting or embroidering a computer. Another thing that we can do is critical AI literacy. I think I saw something on the chat on the previous one about what does it mean, AI literacy. And I think AI literacy is not about how to do prompt engineering as it is being sold by the companies. It's not, if somebody's an engineer, my sister is an engineer, this is like she faints when she hears that, because we are being told by companies that it's very easy, right? Like anybody can just prompt and you just need to prompt until you get the response. So if it's so easy, why should we devote classes on how to use this? What we need to do is understand how it works and the context around it. So there's a socio-technical, cultural, and economic aspect around it. So this is also what I think it's meant by critical AI literacy and what it's important to look into. We can also reject techno-chauvinism. So when people say like the solution is a technology, it's like, is it the best way we can use our resources and time? So aligning the use of technology with our values and remembering that we have a responsibility to society and the world in the role that we have. And also I would recommend finding a community. So at my university, I started reading a critical AI reading group with colleagues that we were having discussions about it and concerns, and we're like, well, maybe I don't understand this. So we started a reading group, and there are some lists. I will put them also in the chat at the end. Sorry, Jamie would put it, or it was more Marie who would put them. So we just started reading these books, and there are some more basic ones and more general ones, and with people from different departments, and we'll be having, so it's not just reading them, but discussing it with each other. And we've been finding out that many of us have concerns. So this is also very helpful. And through reading and learning more about critical AI literacy, we have been better equipped to, in our own institutes or departments, when somebody says like, should we just make this a chatbot just because everybody's making a chatbot? And you're like, should we, right? Like, what is the purpose of it? How much time is it going to use? This is the best way we can do it. So these are some of the things that I think we can do, we can all do to reclaim our agency, and not just the future, but the now. So this is my last slide. I would like to thank you. And there are here some links for critical AI literacy. These are from two of my co-authors, and on there they have blog posts, links to blog posts and books and articles for critical AI literacy. And there's also the link to our position paper. We also have a poster, so you can print that and also share that around. And also the link to the open letter. And I'm open to questions.
Thank you so much, Andrea. If anybody has any questions they'd like to pose, please feel free to post them in the chat. I think that we had some like some lively conversation going on in the video. I would ask Andrea if you would share your first slide again. I didn't get a picture of you next to your first slide, and I wanted to do that so we could share it in the chat,
Sure.
if that's all
Uh,
right.
yes.
Um, and I wanted you to be aware so you weren't caught, with like
Oh, wait, sure. Let me just because I removed the, where is it? Yes, I will share.
oh, and I'm gonna unpin myself because I don't want to be in this picture.
Of the first picture of the first slide. Sorry, going
Yeah,
really fast.
sure.
This one?
Yes, perfect. All right, so I will let you know. You ready?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, we are at time. So I hope that we will continue to have a great conversation about artificial intelligence and all of the implications and kind of points that both Tom and Andrea were making today in the Brightspace Connect space. I know I'll be in there. Hoping for some conversation in there, and we'll get all of the links and the poll results from today shared. And Andrea, I'll share those poll results with you as well
Thank you.
so that you can see that, and you're getting some thanks in the chat. So I really do want to extend my deepest thanks to you for coming on with us so late in the evening for you at the end of a work week. So especially if you, as you're a PhD candidate, I know how busy you are with that. For the rest of you, thank you for sticking around. We have another session, and just be mindful of the schedule change. We're going to be joined by D2L and our infamous Stephen Race here from SUNY Online to talk about Brightspace and D2L, and that will start in just 9 minutes. So until then, we're going to take a little break. I'm going to put up a poll, and nobody else knows about this except for Marie. And I just want people, not a poll, but a way for you to express your thanks to the SUNY Center for Professional Development for them actually making sure that the summit has gone so smoothly and as well as it has all week. So I'm going to post that link in the chat and hope people start to post some comments there. So again, thank you, Andrea.
Thank
Have
you.
a
I will try to join into the Connect space later
great.
tomorrow to just yeah, check.
I would love that. All right,
Okay.
perfect. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.